David Brewster here with a new episode of Scales and Tales, and this is Modes of the Harmonic Minor Scale. And it was about 10 days ago when I made the Harmonic Minor Scale Chords and Progressions episode, and before that was Mastering Harmonic Minor. And if you've been following these lessons, this episode is going to basically dive into the modes that are derived from the Harmonic Minor Scale. Very interesting, series of scales and tonalities floating around here. Very unusual, very far removed from standard, major and minor scales and tonalities. So if this is something you want to tackle, this is your episode, so let's dive in. So tackling the modes from the harmonic minor scale, definitely there's kind of a precursor or a primer to that, and that's mastering the modes from the major scale first, because definitely if you just dive in trying to understand the modes and tonalities and chords and chord progressions that surround harmonic minor without looking at the major scale modal breakdown, you're going to get really confused because, tackling the major scale and major scale modes first kind of shows you the process, and you kind of learn how to rework and kind of reharmonize or change the tonality of the major scale into the other modes. The same process is going to happen here with harmonic minor, also melodic minor, and really any scale that derives modes is going to use the similar kind of format or process. So to kind of help you, just in case you're kind of scratching your head like, well, who uses harmonic minor? There's tons of players, jazz and metal and rock and classical music. But here's an image, with 10 legendary rock and metal guitarists known for using this scale. So to get started here, we're going to basically revisit what we looked at in one of the previous episodes, and that's arranging harmonic minor on a single string. And the reason we're revisiting this is we're going to basically build a scale off of each, note from harmonic minor, arranged on the A string. So we're still going to lock into A minor. I didn't want to lose anybody as far as changing keys. And, definitely you can use this lesson on top of the previous two, mastering harmonic minor and harmonic minor scale chords and progressions. You can put all three of these lessons together. They're all in A minor. And we're basically just going to kind of merge or smush, things that appeared in the first two episodes together. And that's going to reveal these modal flavors and scales. So A harmonic minor, just a reminder, it's, the A natural minor scale with a G sharp. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, A. And arranged on the A string, it would look and sound like that. So we're going to basically build, the scale starting on each note like that. So there's your A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, and A. Before we dive into the scale and start revealing, scale fingerings in different positions, it's really important to notice what we're doing. We're basically just taking that 7-note scale, A harmonic minor, and we're just going to basically, start on a different note within that scale, A or B or C or D or E or F or G sharp. And then we're also going to change the chord behind it too. So it's really important to understand what we're doing. We're going to start on A, play A harmonic minor to the next A up there an octave higher. And then when we move to the next mode, like the second note in that scale, we're going to start on B and then travel all the way through the scale to that octave B, and then C and D and so on. And as we change the triads or chords behind it from A minor to B diminished to C augmented and so on, which we talked about that in the harmonic minor scale chords and progressions episode. But if we start to kind of put those chords or triads and scale forms together, you're going to hear these different flavors. So here's the breakdown as far as the names and also the scale spelling for all the modes from the harmonic minor scale in the key of A or A minor. And reviewing the triads that match each note in that scale, A minor over the A, B diminished over the B, C augmented over the C, D minor over the D, E major over E, F major over F, and G sharp diminished over the G sharp. If we start to really investigate that as far as the chords, that's the harmonized, harmonic minor scale in A, just using the triads. And that's what we're going to use in this episode, just to kind of keep everything simple. So I'm going to use the MXR clone looper to help me out here, but what we're going to do is just walk through each note of the scale and kind of reveal the modal sound and triad, for each note in the scale. And that's going to slowly kind of serve up the modes from harmonic minor. This is a great way to tackle or learn the scale. Instead of just diving in trying to learn all 7 at the same time, just learn 1 at a time and walk your way through it. So first up's A minor, the A minor triad, and then A harmonic minor over it. So think of the A triad or A minor right there. And we actually looked at the scale, fingering before, like this. So there's a 2-octave A harmonic minor right there. Just remember it's A natural minor with a G sharp. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp. And against that chord, it looks and sounds like this. And that very distinct tonality. So the second note of the scale is B, and if you remember what we talked about when we harmonized the scale in the chords and progressions episode, the second chord is diminished, right? So B diminished, right? And this is basically a Locrian natural sixth. So think Locrian from the major scale, that's the last mode from the major scale, and this is that mode, but with a natural sixth, like this. That would be B Locrian natural sixth played over that B diminished triad. Sounds and looks like this. Right? Very off and very unusual tonality. The third note from A harmonic minor is C, and that basically means that the third mode is going to basically revolve around augmented. Because, the triad right there, we're going to have that G sharp in that C triad, so instead of C major, it's going to be, C augmented as far as the triad. So this is Ionian sharp 5, or augmented major, and that's going to look and sound like this over the chord. Very interesting, very off, color, but I like it though. It's very exotic. And it has that sour kind of flavor too. Pretty cool. The fourth note of A harmonic minor is D, and the fourth mode is basically Dorian sharp 4. So think Dorian, but with the raised fourth, which is kind of like a Lydian territory. But the tonality here is just going to be minor, like D minor, as far as the triad. And then, D Dorian sharp 4 looks and sounds like this. Right? Dorian sharp 4. Okay, the fifth note from A harmonic minor is E. That means the fifth mode is going to be E Phrygian dominant. And that's going to look and sound like this. And keep in mind we're playing this over E major as far as the triad. Right? So the 5 chord. And the fifth mode's Phrygian dominant. Definitely a very familiar and famous, mode from the harmonic minor scale. Looks and sounds like this. Definitely hear that Phrygian, flavor. But then there's a major third. Definitely Phrygian dominant is really cool. Okay, the sixth note from A harmonic minor is F, right? The triad we're going to play over here is F major, or an F triad. And the scale, it's going to be Lydian sharp 2. So think Lydian with a raised second. So that's very unusual. Something like this. Really wacko and weird. Super bizarro land right there, but it's a useful scale. Last but not least, the seventh note of A harmonic minor is G sharp, way up here, right? And basically the triad we're going to play over is G sharp diminished. And then the scale, it's basically G sharp superlocrian, or the altered scale. And we're basically building a mode off that very tense, major seventh that we find in, harmonic minor, that G sharp. So played over a G sharp diminished chord, G sharp superlocrian is going to sound and look like this. Very strange and funky tonality for sure. A lot of tension, real dark and angry. Alright, that's going to wrap this episode of Scales and Tales with this look at the modes from the harmonic minor scale. Definitely a very interesting and inspiring area of music, especially if you're used to just regular major and minor keys and progressions and scales. You start diving into some of this stuff and it's going to shake your whole world up. And you're going to start thinking about scales and progressions and music a little bit differently. And I know for me, once I tackled this and I really started to kind of get my hands dirty and understand what I was doing, I couldn't help but look over at melodic minor and other scales, wondering well, what other scales and modes can I uncover and find here? So it's definitely opening this big door to a whole new world. And some of you watching might be kind of scared or intimidated by this, but don't be afraid. Definitely we're just taking one scale and then kind of reformatting it, 6 different ways to create these 7 different modes. Much like we did with the major scale, but now we're looking at harmonic minor. So take this slow, practice the crap out of this in A, and then try to move this into another key. Move it up a whole step, move it to B, or move it to D or something, and just see what happens. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.